Hey, it's episode 299. And today, why does the post office matter? And why is it at risk?
Then Twitter is exploring a subscription to charge users. How'll that work?
And as the crisis continues, how can managers help? So it's not a heavy show. It's kind of a frothy show. Don't worry. You can hang out. But there's a word I love, and I don't get to use it nearly enough. Penultimate.
Yeah.
This is the penultimate episode. 299.
This is like fitting for the times we live in.
Indeed.
This might be the last time I do this, or I might never do this thing again.
Don't say that. That would make me so sad.
No, I'm kidding.
All right. So we're going to do three things today. We're going to do the post office. Then we're going to talk about Twitter. And then we're going to end with some tips and tricks about kind of what's going on in the work world and how managers can help. So let's jump right in and just talk about the post office. Because, there's the obvious angle. There's the one you think you know. And then turns out there's one maybe that you don't know. And we can talk about both of them. Let's start with the obvious one. Trump is kind of at war with the post office, right? For reasons that, depending on any day of the week, he's mad at Jeff Bezos. He's mad at the Washington Post. He's worried about people actually being able to vote and thinks the post office could play a role in that. And then there's some weird privatization. I don't even know what. So there's a whole Trumpian thing. But what you found, and I did not know this, is that it's actually having a terrible, serious impact on small business.
Mm-hmm. So USPS was trending on Twitter the other day, and I hadn't seen this headline. I didn't know who was appointed. I clicked through, and what I saw were just a bunch of tweets from small businesses saying that they really count on the U.S. Postal Service to provide competitive rates, and that they really rely on them to ship things like, jewelry or like handmade prints. And and then there was like a lot of conversation about the impact on workers. I did not realize that the U.S. Postal Service is second to Walmart in terms of employing Americans. 500,000 Americans are employed by the U.S. Postal Service.
So I didn't know that. And, I think about this a lot. So I don't know about you, but I'm incredibly irresponsible about how I use I used to be really careful. When I was going to buy something from Amazon, I'd make sure that I could get 5 or 6 things and put them all together. And increasingly, it's like, I need a roll of Scotch tape. I'll order it from Amazon.
Right.
I need toothpicks, or I need a pencil. And because they don't charge anything, they deliver it overnight, which I find baffling and wonderful and terrible. They've essentially made anyone who doesn't have shipping baked into their ecosystem for very, really, really low cost or free, and real danger. And so, for example, the other day I had to ship something to my mother-in-law, and I went to the post office. It was a little package, and I figured, I don't know what I thought, and it was $9 for like a pound little envelope-y thing. So if you don't have weight in that, in the and if you try and FedEx and UPS and all that are super expensive. So if you're an online retailer, online e-tailer, and you're trying to ship a painting or something fragile, the cost can be astronomical.
Right.
What can we do? What do we do about this?
So I don't know. I mean, I think first and foremost, I was just trying to really understand what's happening. And this article from fair.org, I think really encapsulated succinctly kind of the timeline. And so I did not realize that one of the Koch brothers has been on a crusade to privatize the U.S. Postal Service. I actually didn't really even understand that one of the most, reliable government agencies that services maybe every single American was potentially being threatened by privatization. Like I didn't even realize that was a thing. Did you?
No, I haven't heard much from the Koch brothers lately. I did happen to read that Mercer is officially not supporting Trump in the upcoming election, which made me,
Mhm.
there was a little joy there for a moment. But when they say privatize, what would that mean? Um,
I think it means that there I guess there's less transparency, right? Because it's basically private stakeholders who are then controlling the policies of the organization, and there's sort of less transparency and like checks and balances around its operations. And so I think one of the things that's controversial is, for example, the elimination of overtime, or sort of the potential for packages and the service to deteriorate, like a delay in mail being received. So these are things that I personally take for granted, but obviously the US Postal Service not being able to pay its workers fairly or deliver a service that has, a non-trivial role to play during COVID, right? Especially in November's election with mail-in ballots. Like this is, I think this is a really important story.
yeah.
So in terms
So
of your question, what can we do? I think one, just educate ourselves or Congress members who we can call, basically saying like, you know, let's scrutinize kind of what's happening in this government, in this government agency. And then I don't know. I mean, it's a separate topic, but like the mail-in voting, right? For example,
well,
I think
but it's certainly the same topic, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so
Oh, yeah, they go hand in hand.
but we skipped an important thing that I also don't understand, and I tried to read up on it, which is that the U.S. Postal Service is often the last mile of delivery for Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
You order something from Amazon, and it'll get shipped via an Amazon plane or some big Amazon deal that they have, and then that last delivery window is done by the Postal Service.
Mm-hmm. Which would make sense because the Postal Service's coverage and ability to do that, the infrastructure is there.
But not that we need Jeff Bezos to own the universe. I mean, what would be the downside of the Postal Service raising its prices on last mile delivery? Like, what would be the downside there? How did that negotiate? How is it that the Postal Service seems to not have leverage in that negotiation?
That I don't know the answer to. I mean, again, just in terms of even understanding the Koch investment in the Postal Service and how their funds are tied, like in that fair.org article, they talk about every year the Postal Service is slammed with a $5 billion almost like penalty or fee just around where their assets, like how their assets are managed, and it's almost unprecedented in terms of any other agency sort of having that burden.
So theoretically, the new guy should be coming in to make things better.
Yeah, except I think instead what's happening is making it worse, which would then make privatization look increasingly more favorable.
So I wonder how you manage to make it worse. I mean, you can't like put out a memo saying, please leave boxes and packages on the shelf for a week before delivering them.
You know what? I think it's just in some ways is I think capitalizing on the moment, right? Because COVID-19 is putting unprecedented pressure and stresses on organizations and people. I think now is the time where if you're kind of going to like bend the rules or propose things that would otherwise be thought of as crazy and immediately reject them, there's like a higher likelihood that things could happen for the worse.
So I will say in our building, our postman, we have a postman who comes every day and has been wearing a mask. I thought about him the other day because I'm like, I mean, I can go out and walk the dogs in a mask, but after 15, 20 minutes, it's like, it's a little stifling and it's hot out. Mm-hmm. So if I had to wear a mask all day, I think that might be really difficult. So, I mean, maybe part of the slowdown is just the physical stress of having to work in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the U.S. Postal Service Union is, they're trying to combat policy changes. But again, I think it's really difficult.
All right. So the message to our listeners is give a shit about the post office.
Don't take it for granted.
Don't assume that it's just about delivering or collecting ballots, although that's important too. I mean, there is definitely a drumbeat coming out of Washington that mail-in ballots could be somehow wildly fraudulent, even though there's virtually no evidence to support that. But, who knows? I mean, maybe all these polls are wrong, and maybe America is actually wildly behind Trump, except for the mainstream media, and the plan is to do a massive fake voter mail-in ballot scam that nobody will notice, that will just magically happen.
Don't jinx us, Steve.
Well, Mark Meadows, the new acting chief of staff, was on the Sunday shows this week and was essentially pushed on why Trump on Fox News, when he was asked would he honor the results of the election, and he kind of waffled and said, I have to wait and see. And Mark Meadows backed him up, of course, and said, well, we're really concerned about fraud. So we can't say that we'll support the election because we're already calling fraud, but it hasn't even happened yet. So the idea of postal workers as kind of heroes of the democracy, like, that's a drumbeat I can get behind.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Chapter 2. I don't know what to make of this. I had not heard this until you pointed it out. Twitter is seriously looking into becoming some kind of a subscription service.
Yep.
How would that work? What would be the thing you'd pay for?
Membership, usage, premium features. I mean, I think this is something that I've talked about a bunch on this show, which is the fact that all of these social networks, their businesses are basically aligned with that of traditional publishers. It's advertising revenue, right? But for the most part, they've really absolved themselves of the same, I guess, integrity and standards that publishers have had in place for forever, like disclosures, editorial policies. Anyway, I think the subscription for Twitter would make sense. Like, for example, I am this year I have not tweeted. I think I last tweeted in January, and I made a choice to basically not engage. I still consume content on Twitter, but I would pay for certain features that would allow me greater control and flexibility on the platform. Also, as a longtime user, I would probably pay for them. Like, if I'm willing to give Disney $4.99 for Disney Plus, I'm happily going to do the same thing for Twitter.
So I'm going to disagree with you almost entirely here.
Okay.
I use Twitter infrequently. I read it and find it mostly noisy as hell. I know there's a gazillion ways I could do a better job of filtering it and curating it and choosing who I follow and being more, but the people I follow tend to be pretty noisy people.
Yep.
And I don't want to unfollow them. So I just can't imagine, I'm thinking about the campaign. Twitter, $4.99 and we'll suck less. What would the offering be? We'll give you the tools to make it more bearable. If you hate Twitter now, we'll pay $4.99 and you'll hate it less.
No, I think for me, if I were the CMO of Twitter, I don't know, I might play off of something like 140 characters, which was the original ethos for the platform. 140 characters, and again, you think of characters as people, right? Who are the 140 most important voices and writers that you care about?
Yeah, but I can do that now.
Not really. You're just saying it's noisy, right? And you could do a better job, but you're not. I would pay in the way that, think of Twitter as the best op-ed aggregator in the world. In the way that we subscribe to news, subscribe to people's ideas in a way that is like curated and credible and easy to digest.
All right, so let's compare this to another potential offering. Let's look at Apple News as an option.
Mm-hmm.
So, has Apple News asked you for a subscription a couple times?
Yep.
Have you ever, for a moment, considered subscribing?
Nope.
But that's a highly curated. It's exactly what you just said that Twitter would become.
Well, because I think they're more like a feed aggregator, right? Like I already subscribe to The Economist, Atlantic, New York Times, Washington Post. Like I already have ways that I consume that content. Twitter is so unique because it's rooted in the individual voice and the conversation around it. And there are times when I find the conversation in, like, say, a great New York Times article to be fascinating, and I want more of that. But I don't want newspapers. Like, I don't want newspapers to be blogs. I don't want newspapers to be more social. I want news to be credible, fact first, period, full stop. I want Twitter to be opinionated, commentary based, and social. And I think to actually create a cleaner delineation between the media and what is news versus opinion, Twitter should win the opinion beat.
So we disagree occasionally. Sometimes it's just different worlds we live in. But in this case, so if this were Jack Dorsey saying, "Boy, we have an idea to make a way better service. We think there's real problems with Twitter as it is now, and we've invented a service that we think." But advertising isn't my problem with Twitter because I don't see it because they don't have many advertisers, which is why they want to do a subscription service. But they can't offer me a non-advertiser based service as the offering because I already don't find advertising annoying. So and the idea that you would propose that even though they've never improved the product dramatically, despite all of the drama around it, that now with the gun to their head because they're making no money, they're just going to magically like dig in and do an incredible new UI UX much better. Like I think that's not how extraordinary. I think extraordinary product innovation happens because Jack Dorsey and his senior team says we can do better, not shit. We're not making any money.
So I mean, it was a few episodes ago when you brought up the article about Jack Dorsey and sort of like we speculated as to whether he had checked out or was potentially, I don't know, like going through some renaissance, and maybe that's actually what's happening. Maybe it really is the latter because you see like Twitter more so than Facebook has made policy changes recently, right?
Well, right, because Facebook's not losing any money because Facebook counts on little advertising. It's like, you know, Facebook's fine. They're a global network. They're good. They're like, you know what? We'll weather this. I mean, I don't think they're good. I think that's another whole podcast. But I guess what I find shocking about this is the people that will pay them for like journalists that I know live on Twitter. They publish on Twitter. They speak on Twitter. They read on Twitter. They're tweeted at. They're tweeted from. They'll pay $4 a month or $8 a month for some enhanced uber groovy Twitter account. But it's going to be, you know, how many subs do they have? How many members?
Twitter?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't
know. Like a gazillion. It's a gazillion.
We see how active they are, but yeah, I mean, so here are a couple of other related trends that I think give Twitter, I don't know, an inkling of hope or optimism. So, Substack, which is a platform used for people to publish newsletters, that's sort of gaining some traction with early adopters. Everything from entrepreneurs and VC Twitter to bloggers. So Substack.com. And basically the model is, you know, you can set up a free newsletter and you can either make it free or you can pay, I don't know, charge $1 a month to get, you know, Alexa's monthly thoughts, right? So this is like something that I'm seeing a lot. And then, you know, you have Patreon, which is huge. Like, I think there is
Substack a competitor to MailChimp?
Yeah, it is. And so what's interesting is MailChimp has totally re-architected their pricing where MailChimp is free up to 1,000 subscribers. But the moment that you get your 1,001 subscribers, you have to upgrade to a monthly paid plan, in which case the pricing goes from absolutely free $0 a month to I want to say, let's see, I'm just to $14.99 a month, and then like it really kind of goes up from there.
It's funny about newsletters. I mean, lots of smart futurist people types kind of said email is dead, newsletters are dead, like whatever that was 5 years ago, 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it, it's like they keep putting a stake in its heart and it keeps coming back. And, just in terms of the Media Lab, I mean, our newsletters are just killing it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just, growing subscriptions, growing reads, growing clicks. I don't know why that is. I don't know why.
Change is cyclical, and I often say that everything old is new again, right? Airbnb or just bed and breakfast, Uber and Lyft are just like car services. And I think what you're seeing now that the internet has been around the block for a little bit, is sort of old tech is refreshed. I mean, the fact that podcasting is experiencing such a renaissance. I remember going to my first pod camp in like 2008, and then kind of like died, and then now it is like blossoming. And you see the same thing with blogging, like Tumblr. I just found out that Tumblr is getting 70,000 new subscribers, new signups a day. Tumblr.
Is that true?
Yes. Yes, it was the New York Times.
No, Tumblr's got to be dead. Come on.
Nope, Matt Mullenweg bought it. So it's owned by WordPress. He bought it from Verizon for an undisclosed amount.
Oh, that's right. He bought it back. I forgot.
Yeah, this is what I mean. So like, and I know someone who has revived their blogging habits, and Tumblr is her platform of choice.
All right.
So anyway, to your point, Steve, like I think people say things are dead or technologies die, but we're fickle content creators on the web. And
so you think Twitter should buy Substack?
I think so. I think if they really want to jumpstart or validate their subscription model, they should already go to a place where people are curating their own writing and have like a healthy cadence and are charging a subscription. That's where I would start.
So should we move our newsletters to Substack? I don't know. I mean,
try it.
Is it pretty?
It's just the technology on the back end. I mean, people could start an email list by BCCing their closest friends. I'm just excited, right? I am personally excited because I think the idea of people creating more content and feeling like that they can personally benefit from it, or longtime Twitter users can give back to a platform without buying ads. Those are just things I get really sort of
well, I mean,
happy about.
You subscribe to a lot of things. When you were rattled off that list, I was like, there's a lot of people listening that are like, yay, go Alexa. No, it's true.
We have to support journalism. Journalism cannot die, just like the U.S. Postal Service.
Although, who knew they were the second largest employer in the country? All right. So last but not least is this article about sadness and what you can do about it, which I found unbelievably fascinating. So the headline, which is not terribly inspirational, everyone is sad and getting sadder. I was like, all righty then, Alexa, we're just going to be uplifting. But it turns out it's an interesting conversation. So, I mean, I don't know if I think, is everyone I know sad? I don't know if is everyone I work with sad? I hope not.
That's part of the point of the article, right? Which is kind of like, we don't know, right? Everyone's on a slow burn.
And you know her, right? You know Cassie?
Yeah, so I'll just tee this up. So Cassie McDaniel is this incredibly talented designer. I work with her at Glitch. She leads our design team. She's based in Florida. She's a mother. She is a daughter. I've seen Cassie sort of weather the COVID storm up close and personal. And then she wrote this and it got a lot of love on Twitter. And I think it's because it felt so true and it felt so relatable. Basically, people are just having a hard time, and I think we don't know how to talk about our feelings. Anyone who's ever been to therapy has probably been told that. How do you feel? Can you describe how you feel? Like,
what color do you feel?
Okay, right. Right.
All right. So, advice for those of us who manage teams. Like, does Cassie like getting to the nugget of the article? Does she have advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think she, like, instead of just taking like, I'm good, I'm fine, we're doing okay, is like just business as usual. Like, acknowledge that these are not usual times and that there's a lot of stuff happening to people on the back end that we don't necessarily see. I this morning I saw someone who was getting ready to finish a book and actually had to cancel the pre-orders because he was not going to make his deadline for a September publish date. And he wrote something on Twitter basically acknowledging that the pressure of COVID and 2 kids and homeschooling and no summer camp and life was just too much. Like, he has no gas left in his tank and can't do it. So I think one of the pieces of advice is just be empathetic, really try to understand if there are things that you can do or that your employees are requesting, that you really take that to heart, right? Like, if someone is saying, hey, I'm not feeling great, can I take time off? Instead of saying, like, do you really need to take time off or can it wait? It's sort of like, oh no, that person probably really, really needs the time off because they're actually asking for it.
I'm scratching my head because I think that's always a hard thing as a manager, right? I mean, I remember when BNN became as big as it was. I mean, a big chunk of my day was juggling the volume of work we had and the number of people that were looking to deal with, being out of the office in the middle of a project.
Yeah. I think it's like, it is pretty normal or understood that, like, as managers, we're going to drive towards business outcomes and try to get performance, KPIs, whatever. I think what this article is sort of saying is, like, yes, all of that, but are we really equipping ourselves to listen to our teams? And, like, another section here that you have highlighted is there's this notion of performance reviews, right? Like, if you were in a performance review cycle right now with your employees, do we even have a fair baseline to evaluate people, especially while they're potentially going through some of the most difficult circumstances?
So there's this graphic that's in the article, and I'm just going to read a couple of them because I think it's actually really good for managers to hear. And the headline is, "It's okay." Then there's a series of bullets. It's okay to turn your camera off if you want to. It's okay to turn off Slack for a few hours. It's okay not to respond to Slack messages immediately. It's okay to use Slack calls over video calls. I don't know if you know what a Slack call is exactly, but if your pets, kids, partners are wandering around in the background, it's okay. And then it goes on, and the final summary is, it's okay to say you're not okay. And I think that's good messaging. And I think it's tricky to ask people to perform exceptionally and also be flexible enough to give them the room to say, you know what, I can't do these 5 things, I can do 3.
Yep. Yeah, and it's also tough. Like, I travel a lot, and I'm used to taking vacation that requires me getting on a plane and going somewhere. And even I have to sort of ask myself, wait, because I'm not in a position to travel, don't I still need sort of like a timeout, And so that's something that I think we all can be mindful of.
So how do you do that? Do you have like chunks of time in your week that you're like, I'm off?
You know what I've been doing a better job of is like taking walks in the middle of the day, like, and just being like okay with that, which is weird, right? Like that should just be normal. But sometimes you just think like, oh no, well, like my workday started. I have to be on. I have to be like,
Wait. So do you
in.
take walks and not check your phone, or do you take walks and listen to a pod? Like, how do you
We have like a channel sort of where you say like your status, like in the morning, you put a little emoji like I'm here. And so just putting like a little walk, I do a little walk, taking a walk, like telling people I'm taking a walk or I'm getting lunch, be back in an hour, like totally fine. And then you put like an out of office, like Slack has a status message.
Mhm.
So you can actually put an away message saying like you're back at whatever time.
All right. So last piece is this totally arts and craftsy thing that I found on the IEEE Spectrum site. And the headline is how to look people in the eye while video conferencing. And essentially what they suggest is to take an old laptop camera, some foam board, and a thin acrylic sheet and build a little, essentially, teleprompter. So you can basically look into a piece of plexiglass, which is projecting your camera up over the person's face. We'll put all of these links, obviously, in the show notes. But, I tend to be pretty visually sensitive. And so, like, even when I'm sitting in front of a desktop computer, like now, I'm looking here, you're here, and the camera is here. And yes, it would be better. Like, that's better, right? But then I can't see the screen. So I would like this camera to be here.
I struggle with this on this show too. I mean, we pull up the links. I see your face. Like your face right now is mid-screen to the left, which is so far from the green dot on my
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. So would it be better if I moved you here? Let's try it. If I moved you, is that better?
Yeah. No, it didn't change on my screen.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right. So IEEE Spectrum, how to build your little mini teleprompter, old laptop camera. Definitely, if you're watching the show, you'll see the picture, which makes a lot of sense. If not, we'll put the link in the show notes. And with that, episode 299, the penultimate episode, is coming to a close. And have a good week. Stay cool. It's hot out there.
We'll see you for 300 next week.
Big 300. See you then. Bye.